Hi, everyone, and having a great evening. We are going to be talking about whether allergy symptoms can be caused by mold. Now, this comes from an article by Dr. Jockers about the mold allergy, the symptoms testing, and natural treatments. We realized you could have lots of questions, and Dr. Danny's made herself available. Feel free to give her a text, 437-702-2112. I wanted to welcome Dr. Danny here with us. She's our naturopathic doctor here at Justine Blaney Wellness Center. Such a passionate warrior for your health. And she really does specialize in so many different aspects, digestive health and, chronic pain, stress, women's health, and about skin. She genuinely believes that everyone has the ability to make healthy, long-lasting changes. Help me welcome Dr. Danny.
Thank you so much, Angela. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us on this exciting webinar. But before that, let's talk about some of the upcoming webinars that are just as exciting. So we have one about what is your skin telling, what are your skin acne telling about your health coming up. There is one with Dr. Justine where we're going to kickstart our mornings for success. What about your text neck in this new information age? We're always on our phones, our computers. How is that affecting our health? And Dr. Justine is also going to talk to us about 50 stretches and how to do them to celebrate her 50th birthday. So all of these exciting talks are coming up, and we hope that you join us to them. So today we're going to jump into mold allergies. So mold can be a tricky thing. So basically, if we think about indoor air pollutants, mold can be one of the top ones that can come on, especially if you live in an older home or an older building or a basement. There's a lot of trapped moisture or water damage that can cause mold and bacteria to grow. There's, of course, other sources of indoor air pollutants, things like, volatile organic compounds that are released from your furnishings, plastics, building material. We often call this off-gassing. Chemical fumes from paints and solvents, even things like cleaning products, right? Chemicals that can be just, vaporizing into the air that we breathe. Even animal hair and pet dander can be polluting the air that we breathe. Of course, cigarettes, tobacco smoke. If you live in a home where there's smoke, it's going to affect your lungs, right? It's going to pollute the air. Even things like, other gases that, you might not even think about, like radon gas that could be seeping in from the foundation can cause indoor air pollution to be worse. So these are some sources. And of course, we can't stop us from being exposed to all of this, of course, but there are ways that we can limit our exposure so that way we limit the health effects that these things can have on our bodies. So what is a mold allergen? Is mold an allergen? So mold, if you have a toxicity or a reaction to mold, what can show up is oftentimes allergy-like symptoms. So a lot of people can tend to get like sinus congestion, red eyes, puffy eyes. Some people even get hives. It's like a lot of sneezing. Those symptoms can be signs of an allergy or a reaction to mold exposure. Now, why this happens is because, mold releases toxins that just trigger our immune system and causes a whole cascade of, immune reactions. But then there's the second reaction from mold that people can be susceptible to, and that is a far greater effect on the body. And this can cause really vague symptoms and can be very broad too. And it can be very hard for you to figure out, is this caused by mold or is this caused by something else? So let's dive deep into what are some signs and symptoms of a mold allergy. So if you're allergic to mold, or if you've experienced or been exposed to mold, some of the first symptoms you might get is sneezing, coughing, congestion, watery, itchy eyes, the postnasal drip, wheezing, itchy throat, because these are because when you breathe in this mold spore, it's stuck in the sinuses. So then your immune system, that's in the immune cells in the sinuses, your nose, your throat, it starts to cause an immune reaction. So you get these this reaction happening. Now, so this is like could be very similar to seasonal allergy symptom, or it can even be similar to asthma, right? So this is where it can sometimes mimic an asthma reaction or an allergy reaction. But then for certain other people, other individuals who maybe experience mold for a long time, because let's say you've been in like living in a basement or living in an older water damaged home for decades, you can actually, or even doesn't even need to be decades, to be honest, it could be just a year or 6 months, you can have a secondary reaction to mold, which can be a lot worse. So some of the symptoms of this secondary reaction is things like brain fog, memory issues, anxiety. You can even get pain, so chronic pain, chronic aching joints, back pain. You can even get like mood issues like depression. Low energy levels can be definitely caused by mold, because mold just uses up a lot of your antioxidants in the body because the body's trying to fight it off. You can even get things like unexplained weight gain or weight loss. Lots of digestive issues can come too, like intolerant foods, persistent bloating, changes in your mood, excessive thirst or dehydration. Sometimes these symptoms can even resemble hormonal issues. Things like hair loss, or even things like acne can be a result of a mold exposure. So this is why, sometimes these symptoms can feel really vague. So if you have a hunch, or if you feel like you've been exposed to mold, then it's important to figure out and get to the bottom of this, because mold can be tricky, and our system can be easily overwhelmed by it. So this is why it's important to talk to a healthcare provider if you do feel like you've been exposed to mold. That way we can kind of get it out of your system much faster, so that way it doesn't have time to settle in. So let's see, how do you determine if you have a mold allergy? Because, there is not just one type of mold. There is hundreds of different types of mold, different fungi, different spores. So, of course, there is really no gold standard for testing for mold allergy or mold sensitivity, because there's just so many different kinds of mold. And also the testing can sometimes cause a lot of false positives. So what that means is, it's just not as accurate. So it really depends on individual case. So one of the best ways I recommend is to, if you're worried that you have a mold exposure, is to kind of test your household for mold, or to have an air purifier in your room or in your house, even a dehumidifier in your place, to reduce that moisture and to really clean out the air, and see if you notice some of your symptoms getting better, because that could be a sign of of a potential mold exposure that's making your symptoms worse. So even even if you were to diagnose a mold allergy, lots of times doctors would do a specific blood test, right? But sometimes, these can turn up to be not as accurate, or it might not cover the type of the mold that you were exposed to. So you might come out feeling like, oh, I don't have a mold allergy. So of course, there are newer functional labs that we myself as a functional holistic medical practitioner can do, that could give you more answers if you are trying to figure out if there is a mold allergy going on with you. So how do we detect mold in your home? So I'm sure if you walked into a building or a home, or any place, and you kind of get this like weird smell, like it smells like it's wet and there's musty smell, chances are there's probably water damage, and there's probably some kind of mold growing in there, because mold releases these chemicals into the air that can signify that it's present there. So a lot of times detecting mold starts with the smell. So the house or the basement or the building just doesn't smell good. It's a musty, wet smell. And so if you've been smelling this in your home and you've been living in it for months and decades at a time, there's potentially a very high risk that there is mold growing in there. So smell is one of the best ways you can detect the mold in your home. And then, of course, you might actually see mold spores, growing maybe in your washroom, or in behind your fridge, or even under your sink. Anywhere there's high chance of water damage, like anywhere there, even behind your washer, for example. Anywhere there's a high chance of water damage or exposure to moisture, you can have a high chance of mold there. And of course, color of the mold. I'm sure you heard of black mold. That say stay away from black mold. It's very, very dangerous. So that's, of course, is a very obvious one, but sometimes even color of like green, yellow, or white. So there's so many different kinds of molds. So looking at the color change in your walls or wherever there's water damage can also let you know if there's mold in your home. And yes, so like I mentioned, this is the presence of water damage or a leak. So for example, this actually happened to my home when we were doing a renovation. So it was in the basement. We were doing a renovation of our bathroom, and we removed this one wall, and there was so much mold, like all of these mold spores on the baseboard, and this was because of water damage. And so anywhere you might think there is leakage of water or a leak, please have it assessed to make sure that it is contained. And you can even have something like a dehumidifier in that place or at that spot to really, really dry out the area. Because you never know, because sometimes, especially in older buildings, right, there's a high chance that there might be a broken water pipe or a leak somewhere, or even little drips of water coming down that can cause mold to grow. So what's the difference between mold and mildew? Because you might be wondering, because you might be getting really, really worried about if this is actually mold. So basically both are bad for your health, right? Both can cause respiratory effects, sinus effects, headaches. Of course, mold can cause those other secondary symptoms I mentioned. Mold and mildew tend to sometimes have similar color pattern too, but the mildew tends to be a little bit more powdery. Mold texture is slimy or fuzzy looking, like if it grows on fruits, for example, you can see it's fuzzy. Mold tends to grow in like little spots. Mildew tends to be kind of covers the whole surface, and and the growth pattern is it kind of flat on the surface. But then with mold, you can have spores growing, and it could actually really grow roots underneath. So if you open it, let's say for example you've had a water damaged home, a wall for example, and you open it up, you can see mold kind of really, really growing deeper into the structure. And so when it's mold, you must be very careful to call for assistance to remove it. Don't do it on your own. It is not a good idea to do it on your own. Even attempting to kind of move things around is not a good idea. You want to just leave the area, keep it contained, really remove your kids, your pets away from this area too, so that they're not exposed to it, because your children are more sensitive to mold exposure. So removing, and of course elderly as well. And whereas with mildew, you can clean it with a cleaning, like regular cleaning products. So of course mold, you want to call for help, and mildew, you can it's a little bit more a less serious concern. So how do we control mold growth in your home? So one of the best ways is to control your humidity. So, having a dehumidifier running in your basement or wherever you have that humidity is a great, great way. Having proper ventilation available. So, let's say you have a bathroom in your basement, and do you have a fan that runs to kind of dry it out faster? Even things like really addressing any wet areas or water damage very quickly. You want to clean this up. And an air purifier that has a filter for mold can be very, very helpful too. So getting mold out of your air is, you got to treat your air, because when those mold spores, because sometimes mold spores can stay dormant for years at a time, and then they can just start to bloom and trigger and release it into the air. So, and this is why it's a big cause of air pollution inside in your home. And so air purifiers are one of the best ways, and something that I recommend to my patients who, might have a mold allergy that I see, is to have an air purifier and actually have it like in your room, like in your bedroom or in your sleeping. So that way when you wake up, you might not get that congestion as much. HEPA filters are very, very, very good. I recommend a HEPA filter. Any purifier with a HEPA filter would be good to removing these mold spores. And yes, and the other thing is, even though testing for mold is can be very vague, we can still do testing instead of guessing to see if you have a mold exposure. Because, if you have a mold allergy and if you had it for years or months at a time, you probably have some long-term exposure to mold toxins called mycotoxins. And these can be staying in your system and drive up inflammation like crazy. They can be constantly drying up inflammation. So even if you've been doing great with your diet, with your exercise, eating lots of good food, and you still feel like crap, then there might be a exposure to environmental pollutant that you keep getting exposed to, that's kind of driving up that inflammation. So mold toxins, especially mycotoxins, can cause a lot of brain fog, a lot of mood issues, energy issues. And for example, there is mycotox profile. That's a functional lab test that we could do. If you are really, really worried that you've been exposed to this. And because if you're exposed to this, that's the first step, right? We figure it out and we start the process of getting it out of your body in a healthy, safe way. So this is how we can detoxify mold from the body and the home. So first things first is, mold is exposure to mold is a complex process to heal from, because oftentimes when patients come see me with a mold exposure, they've been exposed to it for years or months. So your body is almost at this point, almost like in a breaking point, where it's hard for the body to even think about detoxing. So it's very important to have support, and you do have support if this is something you've been thinking about. So of course you want to, if you've been exposed to mold, you want to remove that mold from your work or home place. So, finding a high quality specialist to remove the source, because it doesn't matter if we as your naturopath, for example, if we start a detox protocol, if you keep getting exposed, right? We gotta remove the exposure. And having a purification unit to help control inhalation. So this is what I meant by having a air filter running in your room, in your living room, wherever you spend most of your time. And of course, then we support the body to get rid of any of the accumulated toxins with a protocol that fits for you and your body. So, some of the ways that we can support the body in getting rid of these toxins is, these are so for example, glutathione production. So glutathione is the body's best antioxidant. It's produced by the liver. It works like a charm, but it gets depleted a lot when you're fighting mold, because mold is so inflammatory. So we want to boost your body's natural ability to produce glutathione. We want to maximize your liver, your kidneys, your skin, to help detox, and your digestion, of course, to detox the mold out of you. And we also want to bind these mold toxins, so that way they're not going to cause any issues downstream as we're trying to eliminate it. So, of course, this is Dr. Jocker's article. So we want to honor him and let you know about his 4-step protocol. Of course, with mold, like I said, it's a complicated condition. So you do want a coach. You do want somebody on your team that is well educated with mold to support you, because if for some reason, if you have a reaction, like a purging reaction, then we want to be able to support your body to safely eliminate the mold, right? So always know that you have support and you don't have to do this alone. So some of the things that he recommends is, supporting your thyroid, supporting your liver with the herbs and with the supplements that can really boost the liver's detox abilities. And of course, you want to increase your glutathione. You can also get glutathione from the supplement stores. Only thing is, glutathione tends to degrade very quickly, so you want to be able to use this very, very fast. I personally like using glutathione for my very, 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 very serious patients who just really need it. Otherwise, I tell them to support your own glutathione production, because that is the best way to maintain those high glutathione levels. Activated charcoal is, used to trap the mold toxins, and it's a very good binder for a lot of other toxins. Of course, you don't want to use it all the time, because then it can affect your nutrients and your minerals, like the healthy minerals that you need in the body too. So this is why having a plan, having someone on your team is very important to give you a step-by-step protocol. Biotoxin binder is another great one to bind to mold toxins. It's composed of fulvic acid, humic acid, and and some other amazing binders that can help with getting rid of these the mold toxins. So that is an introduction to mold allergies, and of course, hopefully you learned a lot about what they are, what they could mean, how it affects your body, and of course the ways that we can detox it and safely from you, and of course around you too. So of course, I'm sure you might have questions about this, or you're wondering like, how can I get started? I offer free meet and greets. We can chat about it if this is something that is a concern for you and your household, for sure. So some of our upcoming webinars that are coming up is one on skin acne and what it could be telling about you and your health. Really, really, really interesting talk. So I hope you stay tuned for that. And we're going to have Dr. Justine join us, and she's going to kickstart our mornings for success with amazing mindset techniques. And we're also going to talk about text neck in the new information age. How can we fix the curve, the text neck? And 50 stretches with Dr. Justine for her 50th birthday. That's all coming up, and I hope you join us for all of those. And we always love to have you join us. And if you even have any other ideas and any topics that you would like us to talk about, please let us know, because we'd love to give this back to you. This is information that just comes from the heart, and I love to do this, and I know Dr. Justine loved doing it too, to just help you. And you can of course connect with us either on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, websites. We're here, and of course say hi to us at the clinic too. So I hope you have an amazing evening, and please stay tuned for other talks from us.